Ladies and gentlemen, there is a moment in every destiny when heaven stops speaking, unless your turn to move. You've prayed, you've fasted, you've waited for confirmation after confirmation, but now the silence of heaven is not rejection, it's graduation. You're not waiting on God anymore, God is waiting on you. You are the chosen one, not because you feel special, not because you were born into the perfect family, but because before the foundations of the world, the King wrote your name into the scroll of destiny. And now he says, see it for yourself, walk it out, take the final step. You see, in every calling, there comes a divine turning point. The promises you heard in private must become the reality you seize in public. God never created you to be a professional waiter. He designed you to be a finisher. The difference between a dreamer and a dominator is not what they hear, it's what they decide. Vision without motion is just a hallucination. And some of you have lived too long in the almost dimension. About starting the business, almost writing the book, almost stepping out in faith, almost embracing the new chapter. But the final step is where most quit. Because the final step is where your trust is tested. It's no longer about what you see with your eyes, but what you see with your spirit. Chosen one, hear me today. There comes a moment in every person's journey where the waiting ends, not because the promise has been fulfilled yet, but because the responsibility has shifted. So many live in a perpetual cycle of waiting, waiting for more signs, waiting for more confirmation, waiting for another prophetic word, another open door, another signal from heaven that says, go now. But in truth, the maturity of a chosen one is marked by the realization that you are not waiting on God anymore. God, in His divine wisdom, has already spoken, already anointed, already prepared, already deposited within you everything necessary for the journey ahead. The silence you now feel is not abandonment, it is an announcement. Heaven's quietness is your confirmation that you have been handed the baton. It is now your move. The kingdom of God operates on the principle of trust and responsibility. God is not in the business of raising spoiled, dependent children who need constant reassurance to move. He is building kings and queens, ambassadors of His kingdom, who can discern the seasons without needing constant reminders. The training ground of waiting was never meant to be a permanent residence. It was a classroom, a season, a process. But there is a graduation day in the Spirit, and many fail to recognize it because they expect it to come with fireworks and divine theatrics. Yet most of the time, graduation feels like silence. It feels like being pushed onto the stage with trembling hands, realizing that you know more than you think, that you are more prepared than you feel. God trusts His preparation in you more than you trust yourself. The chosen one is not necessarily the most gifted, the most obvious, or the most celebrated. The chosen one is the one who hears silence and knows that it is time to walk. You are no longer being spoon-fed. You are no longer being handheld. You are being called to rise, to rule, to take ownership of what you have heard, even when you cannot see the full picture. Every hero in Scripture faced this moment. Abraham left his country without a map. Moses lifted his rod before the waters parted. David walked into a battlefield with only 5 stones and a memory of a God who had delivered him from lions and bears. They moved not because everything was clear, but because obedience had become their native language. They had learned that movement attracts miracles, that stepping out creates space for the supernatural to step in, that heaven only backs what earth dares to start in faith. The longer you wait for perfect conditions, the longer you will delay the manifestation of your calling. Perfection was never promised. Certainty was never promised. What was promised was presence. God said, I will be with you. That is the only guarantee you need. But many are stuck in a prison of hesitation, believing that delaying is wisdom. There is a difference between waiting for divine timing and hiding behind spiritual excuses. Some prayers after a certain point are no longer prayers of faith. They are prayers of fear disguised in spiritual language. When God says move, your prayers must turn into steps. When God says go, your meditations must turn into motion. There is a danger in overstaying the season of waiting. What was once preparation becomes procrastination. What was once faith becomes fear. And the longer you delay, the harder it becomes to obey. The voice of God is clearest at the moment of command. It grows faint in the noise of overthinking. If you are truly a chosen one, you must learn to discern the shift. There is a sound in the spirit when the season changes. It is not always loud, it is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just a knowing in your belly that says, this is the moment. If I don't move now, I will miss what God has aligned for me. Destiny is a moving river. You cannot catch it standing on the shore. You must leap into it. Even if the current looks wild, trusting that the same God who called you will also carry you. When you realize that God is waiting on you, it changes everything. You stop begging for permission and start walking in authority. You stop asking, is it really me? And start declaring, if not me, then who? You understand that the mantle has already fallen on your shoulders. It is your responsibility to pick it up and move. Destiny is not passive. It is active. It responds to courage. It bows to obedience. It unlocks for those who are willing to move beyond their fears into the unknown. You are the answer to a problem on the earth. You are the solution heaven has sent. But solutions do not work sitting on the shelf. They must be applied, activated, released. Every day you delay your movement, someone else's breakthrough is delayed. Every day you hold back in fear, someone else continues to suffer without the gift you were meant to deliver. Your calling is not just about you. It is about the lives attached to your obedience. When heaven falls silent, it is not because heaven is absent. It is because heaven has spoken enough. The last instruction still stands. The last word is still valid. God has not changed his mind. He is waiting to see if you will trust him enough to move without needing another sign. The chosen one walks when others wait. The chosen one acts when others analyze. The chosen one knows that faith is the bridge between hearing and having. Faith is not just believing God can do it, it is acting as if he already has. Faith is movement. Faith is risk. Faith is stepping out with no plan B because you know plan A is the only plan heaven ever authorized. You are born for this moment. You are equipped for this battle. You are anointed for this assignment. Stop waiting for another confirmation. Stop waiting for the fear to disappear. Fear does not leave before you step. It flees after you move. Boldness is not the absence of fear. It is movement in spite of fear. The chosen one rises when others retreat. The chosen one advances when others analyze. The chosen one trusts the voice of the King, even when the world around them offers 1,000 reasons to stay still. Today you stand on the edge of everything you have prayed for, everything you have cried for, everything you have fasted for. But the final step is yours. God has delivered the promise to the door of your faith. You must now open it with your obedience. The heavens are waiting. The earth is groaning. The clock of destiny is ticking. Your moment is here. It is not enough to see the promise in your mind if you are not willing to pursue it with your life. Many people are experts in dreaming, but amateurs in doing. They see visions of greatness, flashes of purpose, glimpses of the future that make their hearts race, yet when it comes to action, they freeze. They are paralyzed by fear, intimidated by the gap between where they are and what they have seen. But vision that remains locked inside of you is a prisoner. Vision was not given to you to admire, it was given to you to manifest. Until you move, your vision will only ever be a fantasy. It will remain a beautiful picture in your heart, but it will never become a reality on the earth. True vision demands motion. Dreams without action are nothing but hallucinations, illusions of what could have been if only you had dared to move. The power of vision is not in how clear it looks in your imagination. It is in how boldly you chase it when the conditions are unclear. Many are waiting for everything to make sense before they take a step. They are waiting for perfect clarity, perfect timing, perfect support, perfect resources. But the truth is, perfect conditions never come. If you are waiting for everything to align before you act, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. Vision is often clearest in your spirit, but foggiest in your circumstances. God shows you the end from the beginning, but He does not show you every step in between, because faith must have room to grow. Vision gives you a glimpse of the destination, but motion is what sets the journey in motion. Every major figure in history who achieved something significant moved when it was still uncertain. Noah built the ark before there was even a cloud in the sky. Abraham left his homeland without knowing where he was going. Joshua marched around the walls of Jericho before they even cracked. They all had a vision, but what separated them from everyone else was that they moved toward it. They didn't just celebrate the vision, they submitted their lives to it. Vision must drive you to act even when no one else sees what you see. Vision must provoke you to build when others are laughing. Vision must make you move when fear whispers for you to sit still. There are many people who have carried powerful visions to the grave because they mistook seeing for seizing. They thought that just because God showed it to them, it would automatically come to pass. But vision is not automatic. It is potential, not possession. You must pay the price to translate potential into manifestation. Seeing is only the invitation. Motion is the acceptance. Until you put your hands to work, until you begin to step toward what you saw, the vision remains in the realm of possibility, not reality. Many people admire their dreams the way a person admires a beautiful painting in a gallery. They stare at it, they imagine themselves inside it, they talk about how wonderful it would be to live it, but they never actually enter it because they refuse to leave the comfort of their current reality. Vision will cost you your comfort. It will cost you your predictability. It will cost you the safety of the familiar. But until you are willing to pay that price, you will live trapped between what you see and what you actually experience. You will be haunted by the gap between your potential and your performance. Vision requires courage. Courage to look foolish. Courage to fail publicly. Courage to be misunderstood. Courage to work when no one is clapping. Courage to keep building when it looks like nothing is changing. Vision requires discipline. Discipline to say no to distractions. Discipline to rise early and stay late. Discipline to invest in your growth when you would rather spend on your pleasures. Discipline to stay focused when life tries to scatter your energy across 1,000 meaningless pursuits. Without courage and discipline, vision will shrivel into regret. One of the great tragedies is that many have mistaken inspiration for transformation. They are moved emotionally by a powerful vision, but never move physically toward its realization. They talk about it, they post about it, they dream about it. But dreaming about it is not doing it. Wishing is not working. Hoping is not hustling. Excitement is not execution. If you want to see your vision materialize, you must convert inspiration into action immediately. Every day that you delay, your motivation decays. Every day that you wait, your energy fades. Motion fuels momentum. The quicker you act after you receive vision, the more likely you are to keep going when the initial excitement wears off. Vision without motion is a betrayal of the gift God entrusted to you. It is like being handed a seed but refusing to plant it. No one judges a seed for being small, but if you bury it in your pocket instead of in the ground, it will never become the tree it was destined to be. You have been given seeds of destiny, but seeds only grow when they are planted, when they are watered, when they are exposed to the elements. Vision must be planted in the soil of effort, watered with perseverance, and exposed to the storms of testing if it is ever to bear fruit. When you move, even if it is a small step, you signal to heaven that you believe. Faith without works is dead, because it is not faith at all. It is just wishful thinking dressed up in religious language. God does not respond to needs. He responds to faith. Faith moves first. Faith works while waiting. Faith builds while believing. Faith acts before answers are obvious. The chosen ones are not those who merely dream bigger. They are those who dare quicker. They are those who, even with trembling knees and uncertain hearts, begin to move their feet in the direction of what God has shown them. There is no such thing as a passive promise. Every promise demands participation. Every vision requires a vessel willing to move. God partners with movers, not sitters. If you are standing still, you are disqualifying yourself from what He is ready to release. Your future is on the other side of your next step, not your next excuse. You will never feel completely ready. You will never have all the answers. You will never have full support from everyone you expect. Move anyway. Build anyway. Go anyway. Move even if you have to start small. Move even if you have to move alone. Move even if you are afraid. Fear is not the enemy of vision. Inaction is. Your movement activates divine assistance. When God sees you move, He sends provision, favor, strategy, connections, and wisdom that you could have never accessed while sitting still. The anointing flows best on moving vessels. Oil doesn't stay in stagnant places. It flows along the paths that are active. If you want to see the supernatural in your life, start moving naturally toward what you have seen spiritually. Heaven's resources chase those who are already in motion. Provision is often waiting at the place of obedience, not at the place of planning. Your vision is not a suggestion, it is an assignment. And every day you delay in moving toward it, you are not just delaying your blessing, you are delaying your impact on the lives you were sent to reach. You were not chosen just to admire the dream. You were chosen to embody it, to walk it out, to bring it from the unseen into the seen. Your feet must match your faith. Your steps must mirror your sight. Your actions must reflect your anointing. Vision demands motion, and motion demands now. The final step is the one that separates those who almost made it from those who actually do. It is the point where dreams die or destinies are born. It is the place where many turn back, not because they lacked the vision or the desire, but because the pressure of the last step felt too great to endure. It is important to understand that the closer you get to the fulfillment of your calling, the more intense the resistance becomes. The pressure you feel at the final step is not a sign that you are failing. It is a sign that you are breaking through. It is the labor pains before the birth. It is the final push before the prize is placed in your hands. But this final step demands everything you have. It demands your courage, your endurance, your full trust in the one who called you. Many are deceived into thinking that the hardest part is the beginning. Starting is indeed hard. It requires overcoming inertia. It demands stepping into the unknown. But if you think the starting line was tough, Wait until you reach the final stretch. It is one thing to start with passion when the air is thick with excitement and hope. It is another thing entirely to finish when you are exhausted, when the novelty has worn off, when the applause has faded, when obstacles have multiplied and doubt whispers louder than your faith. The final step feels lonely. It feels heavy. It feels like you have nothing left to give. But it is at that exact point that you must press forward with everything in you, because the enemy of your soul knows that if he cannot stop you in the beginning, he must try to stop you at the brink of your breakthrough. The final step is the place where your preparation meets its test. All the lessons you learned in the wilderness, all the faith you developed in the silent seasons, all the resilience you built in the waiting rooms of life, now it must come together. Now it must produce. The last battle is always the fiercest, because the spoils are the greatest. There are territories you have been called to possess that will not surrender without a final fight. There are doors that will not open without a final push. There are promises that will not manifest without a final act of obedience that feels like it will cost you everything. But that is because precious things are never given cheaply. Crowns are not tossed casually to those who wander aimlessly. They are bestowed on those who endure until the end. There is something uniquely terrifying about the final step. It demands that you walk in total trust. You cannot see everything. You do not know all the outcomes. You are beyond the point where you can rely on your own strength or wisdom. You are standing on the edge where only faith can sustain you. The final step feels like stepping off a cliff, believing that either God will catch you or teach you how to fly, and He always does. But you will never experience that supernatural support unless you dare to take the step first. The greatest temptation at the final step is not outright rebellion, but subtle resignation. It is the quiet voice that says, maybe this is good enough. It is the whisper that suggests settling for less than what you know God promised. It is the temptation to ease up, to slow down, to lower your expectations just enough to make life comfortable again. But comfort is the enemy of conquest. You were not called to live a life that is merely comfortable. You were called to live a life that is significant. And significance demands sacrifice, especially in the final moments. It is at the final step that your vision will be tested by delay. You will feel like you have done everything right, yet still not see the immediate results you expected. You will pray, fast, believe, work hard, and still feel like nothing is moving. That is the testing of your perseverance. That is the proving ground of champions. It is easy to have faith for a day. It is another thing to have faith for a decade. It is easy to trust when the sun is shining. It is another thing entirely to trust when all you see are clouds and storms. Yet those who endure that final test, those who refuse to quit when it would be easier to walk away, are the ones who step into a realm of blessing and influence that most only dream about. At the final step, you will often find yourself standing alone. Those who cheered you on in the beginning may have fallen away. Those who promised to stand with you may have disappeared. And you will realize that at this critical moment, it is not about the crowd, it is about the covenant. It is not about who sees you, it is about the God who called you. You must be willing to finish your assignment, even if no one is clapping, even if no one is watching, even if no one understands. True greatness is measured not by how you start, but by how you finish when finishing costs you everything. Fear will scream the loudest at the final step. Doubt will assemble its armies. Every insecurity you thought you had conquered will try to rise up again. But you must recognize that fear's intensity is proof of how close you are. The enemy does not waste his strongest weapons on those who pose no threat. If the warfare around you has increased, it is because the treasure within you is about to be revealed. If the pressure feels unbearable, it is because the promise is unbreakable. You must not confuse exhaustion with a signal to quit. The final step will require you to draw from wells you did not know you had. You will have to tap into a strength that was hidden deep within you, placed there by God for such a time as this. Your weariness is not a sign that you are weak. It is a sign that you have been faithful. And now, heaven is waiting to crown your obedience with manifestation. The final step is often where the biggest miracles happen. The walls of Jericho did not fall after one day of marching. It was after 7 days, and on the 7th day, after 7 times around, that the walls collapsed. Naaman was not healed after dipping once or twice or 3 times in the Jordan. It was after the 7th time. The breakthrough comes in the extra push. The victory comes in the final obedience. It is in that moment where everything in you wants to stop, but you dig deep and push one more time, that destiny unfolds. You must see the final step not as a burden, but as a privilege. Not everyone is trusted to carry the weight of the final step. Many are called, but few are chosen because few are willing to pay the full price. But if you will press, if you will refuse to be moved by your feelings, if you will walk by faith and not by sight, you will find yourself standing in the reality of what you once only dreamed about. The final step is the step into fulfillment. It is the step into the tangible evidence of God's faithfulness. It is the step that moves the chosen one from preparation to possession. At the final step, when everything feels stretched to the breaking point, when resistance feels overwhelming and the pressure seems unbearable, there is one force that carries you through. It is not talent, it is not connections, it is not even strategy. It is identity. It is knowing who you are at the deepest level, beyond circumstances, beyond feelings, beyond external validation. Identity is the secret weapon that allows you to finish what you started. It is the anchor that holds you steady when the winds of doubt and fear try to blow you off course. Without a firm grip on your identity, the final step will feel impossible, because you will interpret the struggle as a reflection of your worth. But when you know who you are, you realize that your worth was settled before the battle even began. Identity is not something you earn through achievement, it is something you receive through revelation. You do not become a chosen one because you succeeded. You are a chosen one before you ever take the first step. It is the internal knowing, rooted in the voice of God, that you are called, equipped, appointed, and assigned for a purpose greater than yourself. That identity must be louder in your soul than the noise of the world around you. If you almost see yourself based on your circumstances, you will quit when circumstances become unfavorable. But if you see yourself through the lens of divine identity, you will press through circumstances because you understand they are temporary, but your calling is eternal. At the final step, the enemy will not primarily attack your dream. He will attack your identity. He will whisper that you are a failure, that you are a fraud, that you are forgotten, that you are foolish for believing. He will replay every past mistake, magnify every current weakness, and prophesy every future defeat. If you do not know who you are, you will believe the lies. You will forfeit your inheritance because you will assume you are unworthy to claim it. The real warfare is always over your identity because identity drives destiny. If the enemy can make you doubt who you are, he can disqualify you from the race without ever touching your circumstances. You will disqualify yourself by giving up prematurely. Identity is what empowers perseverance. When you know you are chosen, you endure differently, you fight differently, you wait differently. You do not interpret delays as denials. You do not interpret hardships as rejections. You understand that the weight you carry is confirmation of the calling you carry. You are not surprised by resistance, you expect it. You are not discouraged by opposition. You are strengthened by it. You are not overwhelmed by the burden. You are honored to bear it, because you know that chosen vessels are trusted with greater battles and greater blessings. When you know who you are, you stop negotiating with fear. You stop entertaining doubt. You stop seeking permission from people who were never assigned to understand your journey. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into places God called you to transform. Identity gives you the boldness to walk alone if necessary, the courage to build when others are tearing down, the patience to wait when others are rushing ahead. Identity fortifies you against the storms of public opinion and internal insecurity. You cannot afford to reach the final step and still be questioning your worth. The final step demands full confidence in your God-given identity. Not arrogance, not pride, but a humble, fierce certainty that you are who He says you are. Confidence that you are anointed for this moment. Confidence that you are equipped for this battle. Confidence that you are destined for this victory. Every promise you are pursuing requires a level of internal fortitude that is rooted in identity. Without it, you will self-sabotage when the pressure peaks. The revelation of identity is not just a theological concept, it is a survival weapon. When David faced Goliath, it was not his slingshot that gave him the advantage, it was his identity. He knew he was a covenant son of Israel, and that Goliath was an uncircumcised Philistine. David's confidence did not come from his size, his armor, or his experience. It came from his understanding of who he was in covenant with God. When you stand at the final step, you must have the same internal posture. Your confidence must be anchored in who you are, not what you feel. Feelings are fickle. Identity is eternal. There will be moments at the final step where nothing externally validates your progress. No applause, no breakthroughs, no signs that you are winning. In those moments, it is your identity that reminds you that winning was determined the moment you said yes to the call. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from victory. Your identity guarantees that the outcome is already secure, even if the process feels uncertain. This knowing transforms how you endure. You stop interpreting silence as abandonment. You stop interpreting slow progress as failure. You see everything through the lens of a conqueror who has already been crowned in heaven, even if the crown has not yet touched your head on earth. Identity also governs how you recover. Even if you fall at the final step, even if you stumble under the weight, even if you temporarily lose your grip, knowing who you are allows you to get back up. A righteous man falls 7 times and rises again because his identity is not tied to his fall, it is tied to his calling. Identity allows you to see setbacks as setups, not sentences. It gives you resilience that cannot be manufactured through willpower alone. Identity protects your focus. When you know who you are, you stop being distracted by battles that are not yours to fight. You stop wasting energy trying to prove yourself to people who've already decided not to believe in you. You stop chasing every opportunity that looks good but does not align with your assignment. Identity sharpens your yes and strengthens your no. It keeps you locked in on the finish line even when detours and delays try to pull you off course. Your greatest warfare will not be physical, it will be psychological and spiritual. It will be about whether you truly believe that you are the one. The chosen one is not chosen because they are perfect. They are chosen because they believe the one who chose them. They stand not on their own merit but on divine election. They move forward not because everything is easy, but because they refuse to betray the truth of their identity by quitting. Identity also births gratitude. When you know you are chosen, you carry your calling with honor, not entitlement. You understand that this race you are running is a privilege, not a punishment. You recognize that being trusted with purpose is a gift, not a burden. This gratitude fuels your endurance because you realize that every battle, every tear, every lonely night is producing a weight of glory far beyond what you can see now. The final step will expose what you really believe about yourself. It will peel back the surface layers and reveal the core. It will show you if your identity is built on sand or on the solid rock of divine truth. If you have spent the journey building your identity on accomplishments, applause, or approval, the final pressure will crush you. But if you have built your identity on the unshakable word of God over your life, you will withstand the pressure and step into the... Before you can ever walk into what you are called to possess, you must first see it within yourself. Victory is not first won on the battlefield. It is first won in the mind, in the heart, and in the spirit. The future you are called to live must become more real to you on the inside than the present circumstances you are surrounded by. Every champion, every pioneer, every chosen one who fulfilled their destiny had to master the art of seeing with the eyes of faith long before they held anything in their hands. This internal vision is not fantasy. It is the divine preview that fuels perseverance and unlocks the courage to act when everything around you says it's impossible. Seeing it internally is about agreement. It is about aligning your mind and spirit with what God has already spoken over you. The promises are not created when you first see them with your natural eyes. They are already established in heaven. What you are doing when you see it internally is coming into agreement with what already exists in the unseen realm. That agreement activates faith, and faith bridges the gap between the invisible and the visible. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Without internal vision, you will have no substance to stand on when the storms come. Without internal evidence, you will have nothing to counter the external opposition. There will be times when what you see around you looks nothing like what you see within you. In fact, the external environment may directly contradict the internal vision. This is where many give up because they trust the natural sight more than the spiritual sight. They interpret delays, denials, and detours as indicators that they heard wrong or dreamed too big. But those who finish understand that what you see externally is always delayed compared to what you see internally. The visible manifestation is the slowest part of the process. Internal vision operates at the speed of faith. External reality moves at the speed of process. You must hold on to the faster internal vision while waiting patiently for the slower external manifestation. Seeing it internally also guards your heart against discouragement. It becomes your anchor when emotions fluctuate. It becomes your fortress when criticism comes. When you have a clear internal picture of where you are going, you are less vulnerable to the temporary battles along the way. You are not thrown off course by every bad day, by every delay, by every rejection. You measure progress not by what is happening around you, but by your faithfulness to the internal vision. That inner clarity gives you consistency. It gives you a reason to keep moving even when it feels like you are walking in circles. Internal vision requires imagination that is surrendered to the Spirit of God. It is not about wishful thinking. It is about Spirit-led seeing. It is about letting God paint on the canvas of your heart a picture of what He has called you to build, to birth, to become. That picture must become so detailed, so vibrant, so tangible inside you that you can describe it even when there is no external evidence. Abraham had to see himself as the father of many nations long before he had even one son. Joseph had to see himself as a ruler long before he was pulled out of the pit or the prison. David had to see himself as a king long before the crown ever touched his head. They walked differently, spoke differently, and endured differently because they carried the outcome within them. The danger is that many people want to experience externally what they have not yet seen internally. They want success, influence, impact, fulfillment, but they have not yet incubated the vision within their spirit. They have not yet nurtured the image of the promised future until it becomes bigger than the fear of failure. They have not yet let it get rooted deep enough to survive the droughts, the deserts, and the disappointments. You cannot hold in your hands what you have not first cradled in your heart. Your external world will eventually align with your internal reality, but the internal must be established first. There will be moments when the only proof you have that you are on the right track is the internal vision. No one else will see it. No one else will understand it. People may mock you, question you, abandon you, but when you have truly seen it internally, their unbelief cannot sway you. You are not building according to their blueprint. You are building according to the vision placed inside you by the Creator Himself. You carry it like a seed, and you water it with faith, with action, with obedience. And just like a seed germinates underground where no one can see it, your vision grows in hiddenness before it breaks through into visibility. Internal seeing also requires you to speak differently. You begin to declare what you have seen, even when it sounds crazy to others. You speak life over the vision. You affirm the unseen as if it were already tangible. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who cultivate vision internally understand that their words must be consistent with what they have seen in the Spirit. You cannot speak defeat and expect to reap victory. You cannot speak fear and expect to walk in faith. Your language must match your vision. Seeing it internally transforms your posture. It changes how you prepare. You prepare not based on what you have now, but based on where you know you are going. You begin to act like the person you saw in the vision, even before you become that person externally. You steward your time, your relationships, your resources according to the future you have seen. Preparation becomes an act of faith. You dress for the destination, not for the current station. The process of internal seeing also purifies your motives. As the vision matures inside you, God often refines it. He burns away selfish ambition, pride, and insecurity. He shapes the vision until it reflects His heart, not just your desires. This purification ensures that when the external manifestation comes, you will carry it with humility and stewardship, not arrogance or recklessness. The internal preparation is just as important as the external possession. You must be ruthless in protecting your internal vision. Doubt, fear, bitterness, impatience, all these are enemies that try to cloud your sight. If the enemy can blur your vision, he can delay or derail your destiny. Therefore, you must guard your heart diligently. You must feed your spirit with the promises of God. You must surround yourself with voices that speak faith, not fear. You must silence the noise that tries to drown out the whisper of destiny inside you. What you see internally becomes the seed that produces externally. No harvest appears without first planting. No building rises without first envisioning. No destiny is fulfilled without first being seen. When you see it internally, when you believe it, nurture it, prepare for it, you are already halfway to walking in it. The distance between you and your destiny is not measured in miles. It is measured in clarity, faith, and perseverance. See it, hold it, walk toward it, and in time, the world will see it too. When you stand at the very edge of your destiny, when the finish line is within sight but not yet underfoot, when all your preparation has brought you to the threshold but not yet into the promise, there is one thing that will carry you across: faith. Faith is the bridge at the final moment. It is not strength. It is not intellect. It is not even past experience that seals the journey. It is pure, raw, unfiltered faith. Faith that God is who He says He is. Faith that you are who He says you are. Faith that what has been promised will surely come to pass, even when every natural indicator tries to convince you otherwise. Logic often fails. Reason can no longer sustain you. The facts in front of you may contradict the future you have fought for. It is in this moment that faith stands as the bridge connecting where you have been to where you are going. Without faith, you will stare at the gap and retreat. You will see the impossibility of it all and allow fear to turn you back. But with faith, you will step out, even when there appears to be no visible path. Faith will instruct your feet to move while your eyes still see nothing. Faith does not require sight. It produces sight. The final moment is the most dangerous because it demands the purest form of trust. You are often required to step without full clarity, to obey without full understanding, to move without a guarantee of immediate success. It is at this point that many falter because they expect certainty where God requires trust. Faith is the willingness to walk into the unknown based solely on the character of the one who called you. Faith is the decision to believe that if God brought you this far, He will not abandon you now. Faith remembers the miracles of the past and leans into the promise of the future. Faith at the final step is not a casual belief, it is a consuming conviction. It is the full persuasion that what you have seen internally will materialize externally, even if it takes longer, even if it looks different, even if the cost is greater than you imagined. Faith is stubborn when circumstances suggest surrender. Faith is resilient when timelines shift and doors seem to close. Faith refuses to be offended at divine delay. It holds the tension between expectation and patience without growing bitter or disillusioned. This kind of faith cannot be borrowed, it cannot be inherited. It must be cultivated in the quiet places where no one else is watching. It is built through a history of encounters with God's faithfulness, through a lifestyle of surrender, through daily decisions to trust when trusting is the hardest thing to do. It is forged in the fires of trials and refined in the deserts of waiting. By the time you reach the final step, your faith must be fully grown, fully rooted, fully alive, because the final stretch requires everything you've been building all along. Faith at the final moment also demands a relinquishing of control. It demands that you release your grip on how you thought things would happen and embrace how God has ordained them to happen. Faith understands that obedience is your responsibility, but outcomes are God's responsibility. You are not called to manipulate the results. You are called to move when He says move. Faith leaves the timing, the method, and the details in the hands of the one who sees the end from the beginning. There will be times when stepping out in faith makes you look foolish. People will not understand why you keep believing, why you keep moving, why you keep building when nothing seems to be working. Faith is not concerned with optics. It is anchored in obedience. Noah looked foolish building an ark with no rain. Abraham looked foolish leaving everything familiar for an unseen land. Moses looked foolish standing before Pharaoh with nothing but a staff. Jesus looked foolish carrying a cross, seemingly defeated before the resurrection. At the final step, you must be willing to look foolish to the world to be faithful to the call. Faith will stretch you beyond your comfort zone. It will force you to walk on water, to climb mountains, to tear down walls with nothing but a shout. Faith does not coddle your insecurities, it confronts them. It pushes you into places where you cannot rely on your own strength or wisdom. It demands that you lean wholly on God. Faith reminds you that your assignment was never supposed to be manageable by human effort alone. If you could accomplish it without Him, it wouldn't require faith. Faith at the final moment is also violent in the spirit. It refuses to passively accept defeat. It wars in prayer. It stands firm against fear. It lifts its voice in praise when silence seems easier. Faith acts as if the promise is already fulfilled because in the eternal realm, it is. Faith celebrates before the walls fall, before the waters part, before the breakthrough appears. Faith shouts with a voice of triumph while still standing in the middle of the battle. Faith demands focus. You cannot afford to entertain every voice, every opinion, every distraction. Faith narrows your vision to one thing: the faithfulness of God. It quiets the noise of doubt and tunes your ear to the frequency of heaven. Faith disciplines your thoughts, aligning them with truth instead of fear. Faith fixes its eyes on the unseen realities, on the promises whispered by the Spirit, rather than the tangible obstacles shouting for attention. Faith is also fueled by intimacy. You cannot trust someone you do not know. Faith grows as you walk closely with God, as you learn His nature, His voice, His ways. The more intimately you know Him, the easier it becomes to trust Him at the final step. Trust is no longer based on what you see. It is based on who you know. You trust not because the path is clear, but because the one leading you is trustworthy. Faith at the final moment is a seed that yields supernatural harvests. It is the act of planting obedience in barren soil and expecting abundant fruit. It is the willingness to leap, knowing that God has either prepared a place for your feet to land or taught you to fly. Faith transforms the final moment from a cliff into a bridge, from a risk into a reward, from a death into a resurrection. When you look back later, you will realize that the final moment was not as much about crossing into the promise as it was about becoming the kind of person who could carry the promise. The faith you exercised at the final step will echo into every future victory. It will shape how you lead, how you build, how you dream. It will become the foundation for even greater exploits, because faith never stops growing once it is activated. Faith is not just the bridge, it is the victory itself. For everyone born of God overcomes the world, and this is the victory that overcomes the world, even our faith. The final step is crossed not by sight, not by strength, not by certainty, but by the audacious, immovable, unrelenting faith that believes God is faithful to finish what He started. My friend, the destiny placed within you is not a distant hope. It is a living reality waiting for your agreement, your vision, and your faith. You are not standing at the edge by accident. You have been prepared, molded, refined for such a time as this. Now is the moment to see it for yourself, to look beyond the noise, the fear, the doubt, and lay hold of the unseen with both hands. This is the final step. The call has been made. The bridge of faith has been built beneath your feet. It is time to move, not with hesitation, but with holy boldness. It is time to step into what was always yours, to walk in what was already written, to possess what heaven has reserved in your name. You are the chosen one. See it, believe it, and by faith take the step that will change everything.